Police say the victims and suspects in each of the 4 cases knew each other, and 3 of them were domestic related.
Look, Montgomery's police chief and the mayor had to stand in front of cameras and say something nobody wanted to hear. 5 people dead in 1 weekend. But here's the thing, these weren't random. Every single one of them knew their killer. Police say the victims and suspects in each of the 4 cases knew each other, and 3 of them were domestic related.
It's heartbreaking because it means that people could have walked away. People could have decided to turn the other cheek or decided to back down, so to speak.
The city had seen tragedy before, but this September 2025 weekend, this hit different. When Mayor Stephen Reed and Police Chief Gray Boyce stepped up to address what happened, their message was clear. This wasn't about strangers crossing paths at the wrong time. This was about people who couldn't let things go. Poor conflict resolution, they called it. People who knew each other chose violence anyway. And girl, one of those 5 victims, that was 19-year-old Ahmari Capleton. Whole life ahead of her. Fresh out of high school just last year. Still in her teens. Already a mother to her baby boy. But let me tell you about the person who killed her. 20-year-old Derekana Dunklin. Used to be Amari's friend. Close friend, actually. Make it make sense. A friendship that started fast, built on good vibes and shared memories, fell completely apart in just a few months. Turned into bitterness, turned into jealousy. And you want to know what set it off? Amari skipped a birthday party. Didn't go on a trip to Huntsville. That's it, small stuff. The kind of things most people forget about in a week. But not this time. Early morning, September 21st, Derekana allegedly pulled up to a house on Raintree Drive with other people in the car. She had a knife. Court documents say she was ready to use it. Before that night ended, Ahmari Capleton was dying from multiple stab wounds. Another young woman got rushed to the hospital but survived. So now we've got a community trying to make sense of senseless violence, a baby without his mother, a family in pieces, and a friendship that should have just faded away naturally. It ended in blood instead. You're watching Shadow Crimes TV, where we bring true crime and domestic violence stories out of the shadows. Subscribe now and join us daily as we uncover the cases that demand to be heard. Don't just watch, be part of the conversation. Now, to really understand what happened here, we need to go back and look at who Amari was before that September night turned everything upside down. Just months before this, Amari walked across that graduation stage with the class of 2024, diploma in hand. Future wide open. For most teenagers, graduation means freedom, right? Time for trips, parties, figuring out who you want to be without anybody telling you what to do. But Amari's path, it looked different from the jump. A few months before she even left high school, she gave birth to her son, Kyrie. Everybody called him Kai. Just like that, everything shifted. While her classmates were picking outfits for weekend hangouts, Amari was picking out diapers, warming up bottles, establishing bedtime routines. Her priorities changed overnight.
That's so sweet. Yay, you love mommy? You love your mommy? Yep, we all love him, Miss Okay. Go ahead, pop, pop.
But here's what people who really knew her will tell you: becoming a mother didn't dim her light one bit. If anything, it made her shine brighter. Amari was playful, goofy, loud in the best way possible, the type of person who could walk into a quiet room and fill it with laughter for absolutely no reason. She never stopped joking, never stopped smiling, never stopped bringing joy to the people around her. At 19, she was still figuring out who she wanted to be in this world. Still learning, still growing. But one role she had already mastered, being a loving present mom to Kai. That little boy was her entire world, the center of every single decision she made. The reason she sometimes had to tell her friends, "Nah, I can't make it tonight." And this is where things start to get complicated, because not everybody in her circle understood the changes happening in her life. Not everyone had the patience to accept that Amari couldn't always show up for every trip, every party, every celebration. She had responsibilities now, a whole child depending on her. One person who didn't seem to get that, 20-year-old Derekana Dunklin, born and raised right there in Montgomery. Derekana graduated high school in 2023, 1 year ahead of Amari. By fall 2025, she had just turned 20. Her birthday was September 18th, just 3 days before the stabbing. 3 days. People who knew Derekana described her as someone who loved being seen, thrived in social settings, enjoyed the attention and validation that came with parties, trips, being in the spotlight. She wanted to be visible, wanted people to notice her, celebrate her, show up for her. Now here's the thing, Amari and Derekana weren't lifelong friends. They didn't grow up together. According to people close to both of them, their friendship only formed about 2 months before everything fell apart. 2 months. But when it started, it seemed to take off quick. The two young women bonded fast, started spending time together, blending their friend circles. For a short while, it looked like the kind of connection that could actually last. But girl, just as quickly as it began, cracks started showing. It started with what most people would call small stuff, minor slights, the kind of things friendships usually survive without even blinking. Amari didn't go to Derekana's birthday party bus. She skipped a trip to Huntsville with the group. To Amari, these were simple choices. She had her son to think about. Responsibilities at home. Maybe she just didn't feel like going that day. That's her right. But to Derekana, those decisions felt personal, felt like disrespect, felt insulting even. People who were around them said arguments started flaring up. Phone calls got heated, words got exchanged, feelings got bruised, and what should have been minor disagreements, they festered, turned into resentment, started building into something bigger. The differences between them became real clear, real fast. Even though Amari still loved to have fun, laugh, enjoy herself, she was also content being at home, cherishing her baby boy, embracing her new reality as a mother. That was enough for her. Derekana, on the other hand, she was still riding those early adulthood waves. Wanted to be out, wanted to be visible, wanted validation from her circle. It was a straight-up clash of lifestyles. One young woman grounded in motherhood and responsibility, the other restless, seeking attention, needing people to show up for her. And yet nobody, and I mean nobody, could have imagined that such ordinary disagreements would turn violent. Friendship is fragile when you're 18, 19 years old. Life changes fast at that age. Not every bond can weather those changes, and that's okay. People grow apart. It happens. But should missing a party bus or skipping a weekend trip really end with a knife? Should disappointment over attention cost someone their life? Those are the questions that hung heavy as everything unfolded. Because what seemed like petty drama, hurt feelings, wounded pride, it was about to leave one young woman dead, another facing a murder charge, and an entire community asking, how did we get here? Let me tell you something. What happened between Amari and Derekana wasn't just about missed invitations. It was about something deeper, something way more dangerous. See, when you're young and you're still figuring yourself out, ego can become everything. The way people treat you, whether they show up for you, whether they validate your importance, it can feel like life or death. And for Derekana, it seemed like Amari not showing up was a rejection she couldn't let go of. People close to the situation said the arguments weren't just one-time things, they kept happening. Phone calls where voices got raised, text messages that probably should have never been sent. Each conversation adding another layer of hurt, another reason to hold a grudge. Amari's focus was clear. She had a baby to raise, a life to build. She wasn't trying to hurt anybody's feelings. She was just living her truth, being a mom first, making choices that made sense for her and Kai, that's it. But when you're dealing with someone who measures their worth by who shows up for them, who celebrates them, who makes them feel important, every no feels like a betrayal. Every missed event feels like a personal attack. Moving on, the tension between them kept building. What started as disappointment turned into anger. What started as anger turned into something nobody could walk back from. And all the while, people around them probably sensed something was off but didn't step in, didn't mediate, didn't sit both of them down and say, hey, this is getting out of hand. That's the tragedy in all of this. Because by the time anyone realized how serious this had gotten, it was already too late. September 21st, 2025, early morning hours, Montgomery, Alabama. Humid night, the kind where the air sits heavy on your skin. The clock had barely struck 2 a.m. when a car pulled up on the 3200 block of Raintree Drive. Inside that car, 20-year-old Derekana Dunklin, just 3 days past her birthday, September 18th. She wasn't alone either. Other people were in that car with her, and according to what came out later, they all knew something was about to go down. Court filings laid it out plain. This wasn't a late-night visit between friends trying to talk things out. Derekana had a pocket knife in her hand. Witnesses said she climbed out of that car with purpose, rushed forward with intent. She knew exactly what she was doing. What happened next was pure chaos. 19-year-old Ahmari Capleton and another young woman were attacked. Both of them got stabbed. But here's the cruel reality. The difference between life and death sometimes comes down to inches, where the blade lands, how deep it goes. The second victim survived her injuries. Amari, she wouldn't make it. At first, rumors started spreading like wildfire through the community. People were whispering, making assumptions. Some said maybe the two girls had agreed to meet up, like this was some kind of mutual fight that just went too far. But Amari's family, they weren't having it. They shut that narrative down immediately. They refused to let her name get dragged, refused to let people question her character, or make it seem like she played any part in her own death. Her cousin took to Facebook and set the record straight. Let me read you what she wrote, word for word. After this, I'm not responding to anything else. Amari didn't meet up with anybody. She came somewhere that she had no business in the first place. You came to somebody's house with drama that could have been avoided from. The people in the car knew what the hell was gonna happen. Regardless if it was to slash some tires or not, you still knew she had a knife in her hand. When she ran up on her, you could have dropped the knife out of your hand. You had the intent to do what the you did. Anybody that know Mari was not messy. Y'all not gonna keep trying to paint her as if she was picking a fight with that girl. She was just friends with my cousin 2 months ago, and you only fell out with her because she didn't want to come to your party bus and she didn't come to Huntsville with y'all. If I was with her, this would have been a whole different turnout. Regardless of the fact, nobody gonna keep going back and forth with none of y'all. It's not gone. Bring her back. Kai gets to grow up without a mom, and her mom got to deal with not seeing her only girl every day. Y'all took her from people that actually love her. You all, and whatever you all got to say. Girl, that right there, that's raw pain, unfiltered truth. Her cousin wasn't mincing words, wasn't trying to be polite. She wanted everybody to know this wasn't two girls settling a score. This was one girl showing up at another girl's doorstep with a weapon and making a choice that couldn't be undone. Amari and the other victim were rushed to the hospital. Doctors fought hard to save Amari's life, doing everything they could. But even as they worked, the reality became tragically clear. Within hours, Amari was gone. Just like that, 19 years old, mother to a baby boy, life cut short over something so small it doesn't even make sense. Investigation. The community reeled. People couldn't wrap their minds around what had just happened. Two young women who had called each other friends just weeks ago, now forever separated by violence. A mother without her daughter, a baby without his mother. Friends who had just seen Amari laughing, joking, living her life days before, now faced with the unthinkable reality that she was gone. City leaders came back out, urging people to stay calm. They repeated what they'd been saying all weekend. These weren't random killings. These were disputes between people who knew each other. But honestly, that explanation brought zero comfort, because knowing the context didn't change the fact that a young life had been stolen in the most senseless way possible. Online, grief poured out in waves. People started planning vigils, released balloons into the sky. Social media timelines filled up with tributes, photos, memories, words of disbelief. People who grew up with Amari spoke about her smile, her goofy laugh, her heart of gold. They refused to let her be remembered only as a victim of violence. They wanted the world to remember her for the joy she brought, the light she carried, the love she gave. But for Amari's mother, the pain cut deeper than any words could capture. See, this wasn't the first time tragedy had ripped through her family in 2025. Just months earlier, back in January, she had lost the love of her life, Cedric, a popular DJ whose death already left her heart shattered. She was still grieving him, still trying to figure out how to keep going without him. And now, before she even had time to heal from that loss, she was being forced to confront another one. Her only daughter, the daughter who gave her her first grandchild, who filled her home with laughter, who was supposed to outlive her, bury her one day, not the other way around. Instead, she was planning another funeral. In her grief, she wrote something on Facebook that just breaks you when you read it. She wrote this to Cedric: "Set, I know you got her. I know you was waiting on her with open arms. God, you got my attention. Whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. You ripped my heart out my chest, period." That's a mother whose world has completely fallen apart. One mother, two funerals in less than a year, and little Kai now destined to grow up without either of the people who loved him most, his mother in life and his grandfather in spirit watching over him. The tragedy felt too cruel, too unfair, too much for one family to bear. But the community tried its best to wrap their arms around her, offering prayers, meals, support, presents. They knew there was no way to take away her pain, but at least she wouldn't have to face it alone. Meanwhile, investigators weren't wasting any time. Within days of Amari's death, Darkana Dunklin was arrested and charged with murder. 20 years old, barely an adult herself, but now accused of committing an act that could keep her behind bars for the rest of her life. Court filings painted a chilling picture. This wasn't something she stumbled into by accident. She didn't just happen to be there when things got out of hand. She came armed. She came angry. She carried out the attack right in front of witnesses. There was intent behind every action.
An arrest has been made in connection with the deadly stabbing that happened over the weekend. Derek Anna Dunklin is accused of stabbing Ahmari Capleton to death. The incident happened Sunday. According to court filings, Dunklin went to Capleton's home and stabbed her multiple times. Multiple witnesses say it started over an argument. Another woman was also stabbed, but her injuries are not serious. Capleton's death is one of 5 under investigation that happened over the weekend in Montgomery.
So now we're left with this 2 lives destroyed. One buried 6 feet under, one sitting behind bars facing murder charges. And caught in the middle of all this, a baby boy left motherless, a family left broken, a community left asking questions that don't have good answers. The story of Ahmari Capleton is more than just another crime that happened in Montgomery. It's bigger than that. It's a story about lost potential, about futures that got stolen, about dreams that'll never come true. It's about how fragile young friendships can be when life starts changing fast and people grow in different directions. It's about how petty disagreements and wounded pride, things that should fade away with time, can turn into something irreversible when nobody steps in to de-escalate. When nobody says, "Hey, this is getting serious. Let's stop before somebody gets hurt." This is a reminder that words matter, that choices matter, that anger when left unchecked can kill. And sometimes the people we once called friends can become the source of our deepest pain. That's a hard truth to swallow, but it's real. As the city of Montgomery lit candles and whispered prayers for Amari, one question echoed louder than everything else. How could something so small, so avoidable, cost so much? A missed party bus, a skipped trip to Huntsville, hurt feelings over not being prioritized the way someone wanted. And now, a 19-year-old mother is dead. A baby grows up without her. A grandmother buries her only daughter after already burying her partner. A 20-year-old faces murder charges that'll define the rest of her life. Make it make sense. Because honestly, it doesn't. Ahmari Capleton's story shows us how ego and wounded feelings can become deadly when there's no one around to mediate, to calm things down, to help people see perspective before it's too late. She should still be here, still raising Kai, still laughing too loud in quiet rooms, still building her future, figuring out who she wanted to become. Still calling her mama every day, still making memories with her son. Instead, her family grieves a loss they'll carry forever. Her son grows up with pictures and stories instead of his mother's embrace. Her mother carries a weight no parent should ever have to bear, burying a child. So let this story be a warning. Let it be a lesson. When you see petty conflicts start to escalate in your community, among your friends, in your family, don't ignore the red flags. Don't assume people will just get over it. Step in, mediate, help people find perspective before things go too far. Support grieving families when tragedy strikes. Mentor the youth around you. Teach conflict resolution. Teach young people that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom, that some battles aren't worth fighting, that ego isn't worth dying for or killing over. And most importantly, remember Amari. Remember her smile, her laugh, her love for her son. Remember that she was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a mother, a friend who brought joy to people's lives. Let her memory be a call to do better, to be better, to protect each other from senseless violence. Because every single day, somewhere, someone's making a choice to escalate or de-escalate, a choice to hold a grudge or let it go, a choice to show up with violence or show up with peace. And those choices, they have consequences that ripple out farther than we can imagine. Amari's story ended in tragedy, but it doesn't have to be in vain. We can learn from it. We can do better. We can choose differently. Thanks for watching Shadowed Crimes TV. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We bring you true crime stories daily. Cases you know and ones you don't. Stay with us as we shine a light on shadowed stories that need to be heard, because every victim deserves to have their story told.